Twice a day. All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is 3 o'clock, and we do have a wonderful agenda full of great information for our group today. President James is out of town on at a work event, so I will do my best to fill in. The Secretary and the Parliamentarian have informed me that we do have a quorum, and we are able to conduct business for the day. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. The minutes have been posted in its usual place. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes? So moved. Burkhart. And is there a second? Second. Yeah. All in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. We're going to go directly into hearing from Carolina Gardy, our Vice President for Human Resources, who has graciously agreed to speak to us on the class and comp study. So Carolina, I will turn it over to you. Let me pull up your presentation.
He said I graciously agreed.
Even better. So please, wherever you want to go here? Wherever you want.
Okay, thank you for having me today. I really appreciate it. And I want to share information about our class and comp study, but I also want to let you all know kind of where we are in the process. As many of you know, we embarked on this study because of our strategic priority of hiring a world-class faculty and staff. And when that strategic plan was put together for the university, we felt like it was very important to make compensation part of how we retain and how we attract faculty and staff. So this study we did was for the staff, not for faculty. They do their own thing. But the world changed when we had this on our agenda, and then had COVID start, and then you had things like the Great Resignation, quiet quitting, remote work. I mean, all the things that now are top of mind for everybody in terms of how are we going to provide what we need for employees in the workplace, and have them want to come here to the University of South Carolina and work, but also want to stay here. Are we going to meet their mental health needs? Are we going to have flexible working arrangements? Pay is just one of those components, but it's an important component. But, you know, we've just got so many challenges. I thought I at least needed to show you that slide. I also wanted to share with you the reasons that people are leaving the University of South Carolina. Now, we all know they may not tell us exactly why they're leaving. There may be a combination of reasons, but here are some of the ones they tell us in exit interviews. And we have probably about 65% doing exit interviews. We changed our process in July of this year, so we expect to even have more, but we were having good results before. And now it's on a PeopleSoft tile, so it makes it easier than just getting an email from us after you leave. But lack of advancement opportunities was number one. The next one was dissatisfied with compensation. The next was work environment. You know, it kills me to hear work environment's bad and people want to leave because of that. And then the quality of the supervisor. I think many of you know we require training for supervisors so that we can help them do a better job of supervising employees, help them do a better job of communicating with their employees. I mean, we are trying to do many things there, and I think we started a newsletter last summer just for supervisors to help remind employees about certain things and just direct it at them. But changing career was something else, lack of recognition for work, and I understand y'all have an initiative going on there. Moving out of the area, again, family or personal needs. Those are the kinds of things we're getting when people leave the university. The classification compensation study, I started with the why, but we really knew we needed to be externally competitive. We were not competing with other employers in the market, including state government employers and including other private sector employers around the Columbia, Lexington area. We know for some level of jobs, you also have more of a regional attraction of talent, or even a national at our very highest levels. So those were driving us. Another was just to have market-driven pay structure. We had a pay structure, or we still are in a pay structure that has the 10 bands. We have state classifications. We're in this structure, but it's unrelated to the market at all. And what we wanted to do was for us to know what the market was for some of these jobs. We also wanted fair and equitable pay. That's very important to us at HR, that if you're doing the same job someone else is, that you know you're compensated fairly and equitably. We also wanted to create more career paths, more opportunities for advancement. These were the goals before, some of the exit interview information was out. Creating efficiencies in our process. That's anything from, can we delegate more things as we have a structure? Can we be more timely with turnaround of approvals when somebody is trying to hire? We want to be more efficient, and we think this new structure will allow us to do that. And then, of course, we have to be compliant. We have compliant with our Department of Labor here in South Carolina, department with our state HR regulations, with federal regulations, and all the federal agencies. We are a federal contractor, so UofSC can come in at any time and pull 2 jobs and wonder why these people are paid differently. In the design of the salary study, we came up with a pay philosophy and a more transparent approach to pay. You will see that on our compensation website that we're going to build out more and more this fall and have it ready to go when we actually implement some of these, and I'll tell you about the time frames for implementing it soon. We also conducted job analysis, and this was not done in a vacuum, but we did this along with HR contacts. We asked HR contacts in the various departments and the academic units and the divisions to work with their managers and supervisors, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. But we also had to align the jobs into job families, creating new job function descriptions, and consolidated families. What we were trying to do is have our titles at USC match what we could look at in the market. So that when we got market data, we could say we can compare somebody who is, let's say, a trades person doing HVAC with the market for someone doing HVAC. The way we had it now, if I pull it up in our system, I'll see that they're a trade specialist, but I don't know if they're doing plumbing, if they're doing HVAC, if they're a general maintenance person. Again, our job titles weren't something that we could readily go to the market and compare, so it was hard to know what the market was. This was an example of what we did. We had the job families, then we went to job functions, and then we determined the level. So you can see how a job family might be administrative support, then a job function is administrative services, and then you have examples of new titles that would be things like receptionist, administrative assistant 1. A lot of these might be current titles that we're using. We just tried to make it more sense and had the levels. In information technology, you can see it going to an IT security analyst, 1, 2, 3, and a manager. The other thing we did when we designed these new titles is we looked at the minimum qualifications. What we were finding is sometimes someone didn't have what it took to be minimally qualified for our jobs. And it may have been the job said a bachelor's degree and 4 years of experience in communications or something to that effect. And sometimes somebody might have gotten out of school, they might have not finished college, but yet they've been in communications 20 years. And so we wanted the ability to have these job requirements reflect that we could use things like what we call equivalency. So we could say, well, if they only had a high school diploma, 4 years of experience in communications would equate to like having a college degree. And so automatically we could qualify people for jobs. Again, we're not having as many employees applying during this current time. So we wanted to open up our applicant pools to a broader spectrum of people who could be qualified. That's just one example. Market pricing became really the benchmarking of jobs in the market. We had descriptions of those jobs based on company name pay factors. Now they're called pay scale. Looking at the market, we are also going to be hopefully buying some other surveys that are out there, but this was a survey we used to do our class and comp project. We also wanted to create more narrow pay ranges. Right now, the state pay ranges are 85% wide. So somebody could come in at the minimum, somebody could be in the same classification at the maximum, and they're 85% different in their pay. Not very fair and equitable, is it? So again, what we did was we said the midpoint of the new pay range will be the market value, and I'm going to talk to you about that right now. I'm just going to call it the market value. And then we could pay people 25% below the market value if they were early in their career, or we could go on the other side of the midpoint or the market value if they were later in their career. Again, some other compensable factors might be there, such as their skills, such as their performance, and all of those kinds of things, and where they are within this new 50% pay range. And then minimum qualifications. I think I talked about those already, but again, hoping to expand the applicant pools, also hoping that we can have people who have proven to be successful in other jobs to come here. IT is a good one. You can take IT, and if you were in the 80s and took IT, it's changed dramatically, right? I mean, we all know that. But what if you got out of college, or maybe you got out of high school and you went to work for an IT firm and you've been working there for 10 years? You might not have been qualified for our jobs, even though you've had later and better experience than somebody who had an IT degree back in my time. Currently, I've talked about this along the way, but we've got 10 pay bands, 85%, and they're called broad-banded classifications. We're going to 20 pay ranges, 50% wide, job-specific market titles, and I will say the midpoint is only 90% of the market. Now, was I disappointed with that? Yes. Did I understand the rationale? Yes. Part of it was we were committed to bringing everybody who was below the new minimum of this pay band to the minimum. I think y'all know that costs some money, right? A lot of money. So the other thing was to give units some flexibility for compression once somebody is at the minimum and they are now making as much as other people who maybe have more experience. We wanted those units to have some money to increase some salaries for compression. That's what we call it in HR. I mean, it really is, if too many people are hovering around a salary when they may have more experience or higher performance or those compensable factors that they could command a greater salary. So that's why we're 90%. But we do want to eventually get to 100% of the market, but it may take us a few years to adjust those markets, maybe percentage or 2% or 3%, whatever we can in terms of our availability of funds. But we know the university, I mean, you've got to consider the money to do these kinds of things. Now, you're probably going, okay, so what's happening and what took so long and all of that? As you all know, we had a new president come in on July 1. I meant to go back to look and see when actually I met with him, because we did some pre-boarding with him, but then I didn't meet with him until early in August about this class and comp study. And at that point, in order for him to give some of the funds that they made available to him for his initiatives, we wanted to say, this is one of your initiatives, Mr. President. You know, we have this study, we're behind the market, we need to hire world-class faculty and staff, and we're not compensating our employees like we should be in some areas of the university. I told the board, and it got in the paper, that we had not done a comprehensive study of the classification system that anybody could remember in HR. Most of us were newer. I've been here 11 and a half years, but even our old timers did not remember any class and comp study. Now, I'm not saying we didn't do occupational studies with different departments. Law enforcement's one that comes to mind, that we were always working with the chief and vice president for law enforcement and safety over there and increasing the officer salaries. They had to in order to be competitive. There are other occupational areas that periodically the unit had money and they would say, hey, can we work together on this? You know, they may have done the study themselves, or many times we did them with them hand in hand, but we were looking at those things across the university. But in terms of actually looking at the entire university and all the classifications, getting all the position descriptions in and all of that kind of thing, we were not doing that. And this was a long process. I mean, everybody had to update their position descriptions. We had to get them in. We had to look at them and put them in these families. But we weren't doing that just in our class and comp area of HR. We were sending it back out to the HR contacts and saying, make sure you look at these, see if you think they're in the right classifications, right new titles that we came up with, but also involve your supervisors. Who's a supervisor in this room? Raise your hand. Okay. Did any of you have your HR contacts work with you on putting them in the right title? Did anybody have that happen? Shelley? No? Okay. We did. All right, good. Because what we were finding is some people didn't. We spoke to the business managers, for the academic business managers last week, and a lot of them told us, we didn't even hear about the study. Well, and let me back up to hearing about the study. We didn't know, we were advertising it. We put a website up back in probably January about the class and comp study, but we were not telling what would happen after the study because the new president gets to decide that, right? I mean, he gets to decide if we're going to fund it, how it's going to be rolled out, and all those things. So it wasn't like we could go and say, gosh, expect a pay raise in your next check, you know, that wasn't happening. So we've been kind of quiet about it only because it's not quite, we've had to be quiet about the study, but until the president was going to put that in his budget and go before the board of trustees and say, yes, I want this amount of money to do this initiative, I couldn't say what the plan was going to be for the implementation. So he did that in September. I think it's October 11th today. So I think the board met, I don't know, I didn't look that up either. I had a busy day, but around the 17th-ish or something like that. So it hasn't been that long that the board did say, yes, you know, President, they didn't approve a budget. It was mainly the budget, the president telling them this is what we want to do and them not objecting to that. And I presented in open session that day and also gave them some background in some executive session. So what the plan is now that we have the word that we can move forward is we started working. I don't see Brad in here. Is Brad Holt in here? No. We started working with our IT, HCM back office team. I think we put this on the agenda in 2020 that we needed these paid titles because we knew where we were going. So when we finally got the word in August and said, okay, we're ready to go with that, it was, I think, 2 Thursdays ago that I get this panic from my compensation director who's been leading this, CG Talbert. Some of you might know CG. And she was panicked and she said, they are now saying they can't have any of this done for us until December. December. They know it's been, so anyway, in HR, you just figure it out, don't you, Bridget? So we said, well, okay, this was the plan anyway. The president said we could do this. We were going to move people into their titles first so that we got the titles right. What if one day Bridget gets her title and she says, I don't know who those HR people were, but they must have been working on this at 1:30 in the morning. And yes, we were. She was. I get emails from her all the time at that time. And she said, I don't think that's right. I don't think should be my title. So she goes to her boss. Is Doug your boss? Yeah, or boss, well, whoever. Anyway, whoever. You go to your boss and you say, gosh, I don't think that, because I compared it with my friend who works in, let's just name a section. We'll say, let's see what we can say, in athletics, and that person is different than what mine is. And I think they got it wrong. We'll have a chance to make that wrong. Now, we don't think we got a lot wrong if they involve the supervisors, if they involve, they're a team like they were told to do, but we know that sometimes doesn't happen. So it's okay, but we will tell you your title, and that will be available to you in our people admin system with your new title at the end of this month, October 31st. But in the meantime, we're having a webinar tomorrow. I can't attend, but CG's having it with all the HR contacts. Business managers were not happy. They didn't know very much about the study, so they're included. Anybody that, I think we sent a few invites here to make sure people, could attend. And so she's going to explain kind of the next process, but it will be, we'll send this list to the staff and their titles, the final titles, to the HR contacts, who will then share that with managers who we would like to discuss with the employee their new titles. And we have a script for the managers. We have a fact sheet for the employees. So we hope it'll go pretty well. We hope it actually makes sense to people on what title they are. Now, if I'm a 1 level and I've been in my job, I've been in HR for a long time, and my manager says I'm a 1 and I thought I ought to be a 3 based on what I did. Again, dialogue needs to happen. I'll tell you, they may not know. They may just say, I don't know. Or they may say, gosh, it makes sense because you and Susie Q over there do the same thing. Y'all have the same job. And then these people have this much more scope in their job and accountability. They're 2, y'all are 1, and then I'm a 3. And then you say, okay, that makes sense to me. So again, we hope they'll be able to explain that well to people. And if not, we have ways to get other information out on an individual basis in dialogue that will happen, whether it's with your HR contact, with us, or with your manager. But again, we're going to move employees to their new job titles then. Now, before you ask the question, will you have business title? Will you still be allowed to have business titles? The answer is yes. These are really your market titles that we'll be able to compare market data every year and update this pay scale every year. Also, the advertised vacancies, we will change those to reflect the new minimums that I said will be primarily lower, or at least have equivalency. So the 1 will start lower, have equivalency, and then move on up. In January, this is where people who are below the new minimum will be moved to the minimum of these new pay ranges. It's not a lot of people, believe it or not. Across the campus, it's about 650 people. Not a lot, about 15%. So all of y'all are in this room going, oh my gosh, Caroline, you're telling me this is the first time I'm hearing that I'm not going to get a raise. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the initial increase will be to the minimum, and that's what the president has funded, to the minimum. Now, he hasn't funded it for everybody. There are academic units who are sitting right in here that will have to fund their own increase to the minimum. And we're giving them all that data this fall, so they'll know. They already have been told. The president went to the CAD in September and made them aware that this was happening. So just wanted you to know that part. We are also increasing the minimum institutional wages for all FTE staff and temporary staff, not students, temporary staff, to $14 an hour beginning that day. So that was also competing with our class and comp study. be honest with you, that was kind of something we had started some time ago as well, based on the demand out there. I mean, I was at Lowe's the other night getting my 5-gallon paint bucket, and they were talking about buckets. And they were saying, if Buc-ee's ever comes here, I'm gonna go work for Buc-ee. I said, do y'all know how much they were paying? And I knew that because I gotten it from a dad. But in York County, in Buc-ee's, they're paying $18 an hour to work at Buc-ee. So again, we're having to compete with that and our temporary workers. So the next thing, and I just said January and beyond, you see my little typo there, so excuse me for, I actually contacted y'all today and said, I want to make sure I'm coming, still coming and whatnot, so I finished my PowerPoint, sorry about that. Units will have the opportunity to review salary of employees below the new market. This is where what we want to do is give them a listing, show them the titles and say, here's what their salaries are, here's the new market, and again, what are those factors? What are those compensable factors? It's education, it's time in your career, the relevant training and, the relevant experience in your field. Let's say you're in communications, it would be that relevant experience. And it could even be your evaluation. So if somebody's making more than you, and y'all both have a master's degree, you both have 4 years in communications, it might be that person has 2 years of higher ratings and they want to pay that person more because of that. So again, there'll be some compensable factors. But what's going to happen is each area is going to say, I want to look at my folks. I want to see what I need to pay, who needs adjusting based on this new market data. Some of the market data shows really far behind, even though they're at the minimum, but given their years of experience, they should be at the market, but they're not. So that'll give units an opportunity to do that. We'll work with them behind the scenes to help them realize what they should consider with all of this. Again, years in service, education, specialized skills. If somebody has some skill and they're the only one at the whole university that knows how to do it, we're going to pay more for that. So that's the study. And then funding. This is kind of how the funding played out. And again, as units decide, I have money, I can do this, or I have dire needs of my staff turnover that's causing me to have to do something right now, we're going to work with those units to do that. I mean, we've just got to meet them where they are in terms of if they're having high turnover, if they're having not the ability to attract people, if every time we're posting jobs, you're not even getting qualified people for the jobs, then we want to work with them to help figure out how they can use this new pay and market study to help them help themselves, if that makes sense. Now, that didn't leave much time for questions, but.
We'll do one of them with the pool. Okay. If you have other questions, if you'll submit to us in writing, we will get them answered.
Hi, I'm Brian Hill, College of Engineering and Computing. So I want to just clarify some things you said about job alignment. So my understanding from what you said is that decision is made at the HR level with input from supervisors. Does that mean supervisors who did not communicate with HR about this recently should not expect a reclass of their employees?
Everybody will be moved to these new titles. It may have been that the titles made such good sense to the HR contact you have in your division or in your unit that they didn't ask you for input about that as a supervisor. They may have said, gosh, this is a no-brainer. Of course they're at this level. But we encourage them to go, if I have 8 people reporting to me, we say, go to your supervisor of those 8 people and say, Brian's going in this one, Justin's going this one, Tyler's going in this one. Does that make sense to you, Mr. Supervisor? And if they didn't do that, that was not something, I mean, we worked with people to do that. We told them to do it. We encouraged them to do it. Actually CG met with one whole college and all their supervisors because the HR person said, I'm not comfortable doing this. I don't know how to do it. So she walked them and the director and the assistant dean and everybody through how to do that. And they did it with CG one day. So we did do that when somebody asked for help, but we encouraged everybody else to do it. So they should have done that.
Understood. Okay.
Right.
Follow up on that train of thought is how connected is the compensation to classification? For example, employees that are reclassified, should they expect a change in compensation?
In the future, yes, just like now, when employees are reclassified, they should expect a change in compensation, correct?
In the future, but not necessarily.
Well, when they're just moving to these titles, nothing in their job has changed. The only ones that are going to have a change in compensation is if they're below the new minimum of this new pay range, which is going to be 25% of the market. There will be an opportunity, though, for the college, division, or school to come back and say, we've got some that need to be moved toward the midpoint of this market because we have turnover, we can't attract people, that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
How will people be notified? When can we tell folks they can expect to be notified?
Yes, that's what I was explaining. We're having a webinar tomorrow in which the HR contacts are coming and the business managers, and we are going to have them notify the supervisors through the spreadsheets we give them with exactly what the titles are and who's going in what title. And we have talking points for the supervisor. We have a fact sheet for the employees. Then the employee themselves can look in our people admin system on the 31st of this month and see their new title in a system, but they'll be given a fact sheet on how it was decided about their market title. The thing about market titles, it just helps us know what the market pay is out there, not just, so we're using this like, yes, ma'am.
Yes, and this information is going to be provided on the website, right?
Yes, yes.
And we'll send all this out as well.
I very quick question, we'll get to go to. You said it's up to the colleges to decide for the equity in there, but that still leaves us, one college has money and they won't do it, another college doesn't have money. I mean, you know.
I know.
And so we still have the same position across campus making two different things.
Well, what we've done, as you all know, is we look at pay increases that come to our office. We look at that across the campus. So when they send us what their recommendation is, we're going to be looking at that across the campus for like jobs. The good thing about these new market titles, and I think I've told this group this before, if you have a program coordinator, they can be doing many different things across this campus. Now these market titles are going to be more narrowly focused so that we'll know that these 18 people are doing the same job across campus, and we can look at that for leveling. So we will still be doing that for equity and fairness, but we're going to give them an opportunity to decide. Sometimes we've been known to call the other department and say, gosh, you know, we really need you to raise this one person because you're causing all these other people not to be increased. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you again to Vice President Agarty for joining us and offering herself to come and join us. So we've got, this is one of our professional development training days. And for those listening, one of the ideas behind professional development for staff senators is that so they can be even better communicators, senators, to advocate for some of these same issues that we just discussed. So quickly before we adjourn, we do want to make available any senator who has an announcement before we adjourn and go into the professional development. So is there any senator has an announcement for the good of the order? Senator Cuthbert.
Yes, thank you. On behalf of the Professional Development Committee, if you have a printed story that you'd like to share at a future event or would like to have posted, we'll scan it and post it. So if you print it out, you saw my email about that. If you print it out, if you wanted to be anonymous, you can just put it on the chair before you leave, and we'll pick it up and scan it, and we'll put it in the folder and let everyone know that it's there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with an announcement for the good of the order? Senator Rose.
Hey, on behalf of the purchasing department, we're having strategic supplier outreach on Thursday, October 13th at 10 o'clock a.m. with President Emeritus. It is the, again, strategic supplier outreach. And so we hope that you all will be able to join us. You can register. Jessica sent the email out about an hour before this meeting.
Thank you, Senator Rose. Thank you, Jessica, for shooting that out. Any others? All right, with that, is there a motion to adjourn and go into our professional development training? Senator Cuthbert, is there a second? Senator Sims seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Guys have it. Thank you.